elections is here. At Fatou, we got you covered. Our team of credible and knowledgeable analysts will bring you exclusive analysis of the event step by step and ballot by ballot coverage. They'll be joined by reputable studio guests to help analyze and break down key ballot issues to meet your needs. As candidates battle for the soul of the Gambia, our team of panelists will get you the information you need to make informed choices. Join our coverage Race for the State House every Thursday at 6 p.m. You decide, we got you covered. Your voice, your ballot with Fatou. December 2021, one of the Gambia's most crucial elections is here. At Fatou, we got you covered. Our team of credible and knowledgeable analysts will bring you exclusive...
Hello and welcome to the first edition of Race for the State House 2021. I am your host, Fatou, and of course, with me this evening I have Mr. Lamin Cham, Editor-in-Chief Standard Newspaper, and also the host of The Brunch. Mr. Cham, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, Fatou. Welcome, everybody.
And of course, I have Alimatu. Alimatu Diwa is from the University of the Gambia, lecturer at the university, and she's going to be our international relations analyst. Alimatu, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
And it's great having you on the show. Like I said, all the smart and beautiful and intelligent ladies are hiding at the university. I'm glad Esa and Sarah are able to bring you out of the just sitting there, because I think it's going to be interesting to hear from you, because we had Nima and it was exciting, and we're excited to have you on the show.
Oh, thank you for having me. We see how it unfolds.
We see how it goes.
All right, thank you.
And of course, we have Esa. Esa has been a regular person on the brunch. Esa, it's great to have you one more time on this show, but especially on this show.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm excited to be part of this show.
And this panel is going to be our election coverage program. Week in, week out, we will look at what happened. And of course, we started with the nominations. Yeah. There has been a lot of activities starting on Saturday. Lamin, you've been at the nomination. We had on Saturday 4 independent candidates. Joseph Juve, Marisok, I said earlier on, it's exciting to have the first woman to be nominated. Of course, Dr. Aissatou Touré she was an independent candidate. She wanted to run for president, but she was never nominated. So I think Mari is the first. That's history, and we're proud of her. And let's see how it goes. Is she going to join one of those coalitions, or is she going to go through? It's going to be exciting. We have Alaji Mamadou Kura, Matthew Gomez was also there. On Sunday, we had Taboramane, Ibrahim Taboramane, Mamadou Ba won, because there are 2 of them. Banki was there, the Rasta guy, and Lamin Bojang from Brufut, ANRD. On Monday, UDP was there, May Ahmed Fati and Dr. Jan withdrew actually, he and Bibi Dabo. So Monday there were only 2 nominations. On Tuesday, we had Mamadi K.S. Kamara, Mama Kande and the GDC. We had Dr. Ismail Sise of CA, and also we have Mamadou Ba of an independent candidate. And Wednesday, Sehtijan of GANU, and Halifa Salah of PDYS, Aliou Sow of GAP. So many activities happened around those people. We'll talk about all of that, Lamin. Tamsir Jase, former immigration director, also an independent candidate. And of course, today we had Esa Mbai Fall and his team, and President Barrow, the NPP, and also we had Matar Nyang. Tomorrow, Friday, we'll have Papa Fall, independent, Abdullah Ibrahim Jame, NUP, and Yusuf Adiba of the Democratic Party, Lamin. This is what happened. Like now, you tell us, you were there. Give us a rundown of what really happened from Sunday to today, from Saturday.
Well, as you said, a lot of drama and a lot of excitement happened at the IEC. Well, I think I would agree that it was historic and unprecedented in many ways, because we've seen record 26 people vying for any election in the Gambia since 1965. That itself is a record and its significance in terms of history. But I saw hard-working and determined people who wants to have a political career. I also saw a category I would call pretenders, because I said this, I said people who only wants to, bask in the glory of a free democratic space, and then they want to have their name or be famous just for one day or for 1 month, because they know realistically they don't have any chance whatsoever, to hope or dream of electoral success in this election. But there are others also who are only interested in carving a name for themselves, making themselves a relevant stakeholder, so that eventually they may end up siding with the side they think might end up getting the big cake itself, that's power. So all those kind of people. And I also saw some candidates, who actually I think they probably might have just been dreaming that, when you make yourself a presidential candidate or aspirant or whatever, you certainly make a name and a reputation that they can in future exploit to get other things. I've seen all these, and I've had all these from talking to them and seeing them and looking at their comportments. But like I said, this election is unprecedented and it is historical. What's going to happen is that when all these people who...
We don't have all of them here actually, because we could not find some of them. Their pictures before nomination. So.
Going back to the one you mentioned, Marisak, yes.
Yes.
I think Marisak is determined to make history. The very fact that she would perhaps on Saturday become the first woman to be nominated as presidential candidate is in itself very significant. However, I don't rate or give her much chance. And I think even though we have what we call here women empowerment, encouragement of, all the political parties said they have a program that will encourage women to take part in politics.
Yeah.
I still think that it's a long way before Gambians, will accept or settle for a woman president. So
even though we are the majority in the country.
Yeah. No, but that's the irony, because I would have loved one day for women to have this awareness that they are the majority in the voter register. Yeah. So if for no reason alone they sometimes pick and said, let's have this positive discrimination now. Let's just close our eyes, vote for a woman, which will have a woman president. But look at what has been happening. Look at the dance groups that came to IEC. Most of them are women. They don't ask questions. They just follow their heart to whatever political party they go. So unfortunately, Marisa cannot depend on those type of women. She cannot draw support from those women, by married vote, because one would have thought they would embrace a woman like them, and say perhaps the country is prepared now to have a woman president. She's brilliant, intelligent, but if you look at her other qualities or inadequacies, I would call, because it was difficult for the general population to understand her, the culture. She seemed to have a completely different culture with the woman, that's how people consider as, the typical Gambian woman. The type of woman you perhaps people commented about her dressing style, those are things that nobody would have been any problem with it, advance and educated society. But in our society, all these things count. But I really admire her courage, and I had her message. I think on another occasion or another century, she will be a brilliant candidate for movement. No offense intended there. Okay, I also was attracted to a character like Mr. Let's see again.
Madiba?
No.
Oh, Madiba. Yeah.
I think of all independent candidates, I think independent candidates who really not have numbers, but the quality, which I believe can single them out or make them out as really people who have the credibility and all what it takes to be president. In the case of the independent candidates, no offense intended, I don't think they stand any chance, actually. But then, you know, in the same way, I don't expect them to remain in the ballot box. They either would, you know, take position to side with the big blocks, or perhaps before the deadline, they may withdraw, you know, for one reason or the other. You know, of course, they started consulting each other. I had President Barrow at a meeting, Lamin Bojan of the HENA confirmed that he was at State House, meeting with all the parties. So eventually, most of these people in these pictures are going to disappear into one group or the other, or probably they give up completely totally. But it was really exciting, intriguing, and sometimes you wonder if this is a serious thing when you are not watching, you know, a scene from a cinema or some soap opera.
Interesting. I think this is democracy, actually, from dictatorship. First election, and you see how everybody just wants to express themselves. Everybody wants to say, it's democracy, we're also going to run. So I think it's interesting, but also I mean, 20 plus candidates being nominated, and yes, we want to have so many people in the field, but also you're worried about how many are we going to have like majority of people voting for the president. For example, if you have over 10 people, do you think we'll even have 40%, the winner having 40% or plus? So it's going to mean that the president will not even have a clear mandate of the entire population who voted. Is that a true reflection of democracy?
Thank you very much, Fatou. That's an interesting question. Like he said, this is a very unprecedented political environment we have in the Gambia. But it's not necessary, you know, after a dictatorial regime, and then I always tell people we're still transitioning. Yeah. So we have this political gap where a lot of issues feel these competitors or politicians feel like they need to be filled. Mm-hmm. So we have this political gap that they have different agendas that they're bringing forth. Like Lamin said, some of them might not necessarily end up at the final round, might not end up being on the ballot boxes. Yeah. But an important thing is they're steering a new dynamic of our politics. There are issues that are like he mentioned Marisok, she being the first lady being coming up to be nominated as a potential president or candidate for this country is very interesting. Yeah. So we talk about, as he said, most of the candidates talk about women empowerment, which is very rarely reflected in our policy reforms, in our democratic policies, and all of that. Mm-hmm. So having them, right now, Marisol coming in as an example of women empowerment in this country, SFI trying to pioneer international human rights issues into this country. Then you have some others who are entrepreneurs, former legal practitioners like Haidara coming in. So we have different people with different expertise, even though some of them, their motives might be questioned. But it's very interesting times in this country. Coming back to your question where you said that whether eventually who we have as president would reflect the affairs or the interests of this country. Yeah. Right? I think it's important that even if they don't get there, we have very pertinent issues that are brought to the political platform. Yeah. Some of them might end up in alliances, and I would expect that when they go into alliances with whoever, they will bring up some of these issues to the table. Like I said, most of them know already that they're not going to be elected as president. But here it's where the motive matters. Are they doing it for just to be in the public plane, or are they doing it that at least one or two of their policies would be tabled into, on national development agendas? policies or Gambia's foreign policies. So it is important that we understand that at the end of the day, if UDP wins or NPP wins or an independent candidate wins, they might be bringing along policies that were tabled by some of these candidates who were not necessarily on the ballot boxes. So it's very important we have a diverse political atmosphere. It being unprecedented in our country would stir a lot of doubts, a lot of controversies, a lot of misinformation. But it's interesting times that we're seeing today.
Interesting, you said something, policies. But how often do we talk about politics in our political gatherings? How many of us, the supporters, even do know these parties' manifestos? How many of them even are presenting policies to us and we still follow them? Esa.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. I think that's also another interesting question, but I just want to chip in the question that you asked Halima. That's quite interesting, because that was one of the reasons why, in fact, we wanted to have a new constitution. I think what Gambians yearned for following the 2016 change was to have, vote in 2021 with a new constitution, with new electoral law. This, I think, was the dream that we had in December 2016 when we voted out Jammeh, ushering in a new democratic dispensation. And because we realized that the system that we have called simple majority mostly is not reflective of the mandate. Like, for instance, the president, the winning candidate might not have the mandate of the people. You can have a candidate because we have 10 candidates and they share 10%, 15%, 20%. The winning candidate might just have 30% of the votes, and the remaining 70% are saying, we don't need you, but just 30% is saying that we support you. Clearly, that does not reflect the general view of the society or the voter population. I mean, the nominations have been interesting. I've also been following, and just like Lamin said, I've also been questioning myself. I mean, we're having serious players in this thing. Is it becoming a comedy show? I mean, it's interesting. We see how the dynamics are changing. Following the December election in 2016, having more political parties emerging, having more independent candidates emerging, I think so. One, it shows that a democracy is working, is alive. The political liberalism that we yearn for, to have that political pluralism in the Gambia, having multiple parties existing, to participate in decision making in this country, I think that is good. And I always say that it is good to, it's a form of accountability, challenging the ruling government, because once we have opposition, not only opposition, but credible and serious opposition, they tend to challenge the government, make sure that there is political or democratic accountability in the country. So this is good. But then also there is the other side of it, which is about always giving an easy way to the incumbent, because once, scholars have identified this as one of the obstacles to democratic consolidation in Africa. Once we have fragmented opposition who don't even have a sense of direction at some point, it always gives an easy way to the incumbent, because the incumbent rely in political culture, parochial political cultures, the incumbent rely on the people that are there, because the political awareness is not there. All that they care for is, okay, bring us roads, bring us water here and there, and then they follow you, because they don't see development as a right. They see development as a privilege that the government is bringing for them. But then in terms of policies, this has been a problem in the Gambia. A lot of people, I think also that is why many people have been saying that they are kind of disillusioned with political parties. You understand? That are fed up, tired, like we have been political parties all along. I mean, it's not clear. Sometimes we find it difficult to understand the policies and programs of some of these parties. And you even wonder whether we don't have a copy and paste system in some of these political parties. Oh, maybe there's a political party in India or in Nigeria or somewhere else. You look at their policies and then try to tailor it. But does it suit the Gambian reality is the question. Or whether some of these political parties in fact copy from each other. Is it like, okay, because you know the Gambia's problem is agriculture, health, education, you name them, energy, and you just come and say, oh, because if you read most of the manifesto, some of the manifestos that have did of this what political parties like, oh, education is a priority for our party, we'll invest. But how do you do that? How do you do that? It's not reflected. And then I keep asking myself, I think the manifestos of political parties will in fact clearly contain the policies and programs of political parties and how they're going to implement them. It's not enough for you to tell us that we will prioritize health, we will prioritize education, agriculture, but how do you do that? But it's becoming something, normal in Gambia, and then we have kind of normalize it, that politicians will just come to us. And what I expect in this 2021 election, like I always say, this will be election. 2016 was an election to restore democracy.
Yeah.
We were seen as one of the leading multi-party democracies in Africa during post-independence. I mean, when most of these African countries, in Ghana, in Kenya, they were having one-party states. Gambia was having a multi-party system. But then this was hijacked. We took a U-turn in 1994 when Jammeh and his men in uniform came and hijacked our democracy in a broad daylight, muzzled the institutions of governance, stifled the media, and our democracy was really hijacked. Then 2016 was to restore that democracy, and that's what Gambians did. We did not build democracy in 2016 because it was here. We restored that democracy. 2021 election is an election not only for development, as many people will say, but I think it's an election to consolidate the democracy that we have restored. Do we really have the candidate? Because it seems like people are also confused whether, like, political parties have not been given us, and I think also that is why some people are saying, hey, we need independent candidates because we are tired of these political parties. We are seeing old faces still coming. So having this independent candidate, I think, should be an alternative. Are they providing the alternative that political parties are not providing for the voters? I think this is what Gambians are interested in. Like he said, Mamadi, I think I've listened to these people a few times, but then sometimes you find it difficult to understand whether they're able to put up their policies together. And tell it's the normal Gambian political style. There is no electricity, there is no water, there is no this. But how do you change the life of the ordinary Gambian? This is what Gambians are interested in. And they want independent candidates to bring them that alternative. If Marisol as a woman, is not bringing that, whether it's a woman or a man, just as an independent, it's not bringing that for us. People are not going to say, well, we are going to vote for her because she's the first woman to come. People don't care about that. If Esa is coming, it all is international experience and all that. If he is not bringing that for us, well, do we care? Well, I can tell you, majority of Gambians don't vote for policies. They don't care what you have. All that they have their other political figures that they want to vote for. But really, you have a section of the population, a voter population, who are really interested in tangible policies and programs. So I think it is important that we try to, all those that are coming on board, try to take a reflection. Are they really bringing an alternative for the Gambian people?
That is interesting. But what we will do first, since our election has been reduced to crowd competition, but let's look at a video of the nominations, just what happened just for the past few days. We'll look at that video. When we come back, we'll also look at these candidates. About time, we look at all these candidates individual, especially the top 5. I don't know how we determine that here, but I think we all know who are going to be the top 5. Actually. So let's look at the video. If the video is ready, if not, we will just start looking at the candidates
of the event, step by step and ballot by ballot coverage. They will be joined by reputable studio guests to help analyze and break down key ballot issues to meet your needs. As candidates battle for the soul of the Gambia, our team of panelists will get you the information you need to make informed choices.
To the program. Like I said before we took that brief break, I think it's about time we look at these candidates individually, especially the top 5. We'll try to look at all of them, but whatever time allows us. Let's start with the president. President Barrow.
I don't know where you got your 5 from. I settled for top 3.
Top 3?
Yes. So until recently it was 2. But then when there suddenly was a marriage between the GDC and the Gambian loyalists in the other faction of the APRC, I gave Kande the third force, Trrc, so to speak. But I've always believed it was going to be the election between the UDP and the NPP Grand Coalition. And it's only when Kande had this new marriage I thought perhaps Kande could be the third one. I don't know where you got the 4th and the 5th.
Well, I just want to be broad, yes, so that nobody
I want to say those who were players in the field much longer than the rest.
No, people, out of 25 or 24, at least we know that there are 5 candidates that we can say, well, these people can be, the first 5, right? Even in America, even in debates, they make sure that's how they cast it, right?
Yes.
But let's look at President Barrow. President Barrow is the leader of the NPP. He's led the country for almost 5 years. He's seeking for re-election. Have you seen the NPP party manifesto?
Well, even if I see it, I'm not quite familiar with this, not least because it has not been very much publicized as others are. But I think even pronouncements and, like you said, record in office tells a lot about party or candidate, program. So if you look at President Barrow, in the first place you have to go to history and put it in perspective. He should have no business in this election. The whole arrangement was, whether he was at 3 years or not, because many people are so obsessed with this 3 years business that they forgot that the other aspect of the arrangement was the leader of the coalition 2016 should not seek for elections in the elections that follow immediately. So this was an election where people talk about how pluralism or how perhaps vibrant our democracy is and how people are hopeful that now the terrain is a bit free to participate in. But imagine it would have been a lot more freer if the incumbent was not taking part. Imagine if Barrow was not taking part now. How level or how exciting or how, I don't know how to describe it, how all the razzmatazz and the hopes would have been today. It would have been completely different. We would have got, perhaps most of these independent candidates with brilliant ideas would have got an opportunity. A group like Barrow, which have been in existence for a long time, they play a key role in all our projects, would have got an opportunity. Isn't it? Yeah. So, if I were to join Barrow, I would say, okay, in the first place, he shouldn't have any business in this election. He should have respected his words and stepped down, to have the level playing field that everyone desires. At the moment, it's not level. It's not level in the fact that the incumbent, he should have guided the process up to now, which was planned not to contest, is in the middle of the field. So therefore you have the advantage, the natural, unavoidable advantage of the incumbents. And that is going to be too powerful for the newcomers perhaps to find a way or a territory. It will be very difficult. So I judge President Barrow as somebody who actually should have not been in the race in the first place. Now that he is in the race, look at his record in the last 5 years. Yes, there have been tremendous developments in terms of freedoms, in terms of liberty, freedom of expression and assembly. And of course, that's what the Gambian people really desire and wanted since 2016. Yes, we have seen governments that have, violated all that, abused all that, and he, at least in some degree, have exercised a lot of tolerance and a lot of indication that he really is a Democrat. Yeah, but then there are so many other areas that the Gambian people, not me, I've been talking to people who felt that he should have done better. And some of those areas are, one, there should have been a lot more transparency, institutional reforms. Some of the things that really made our country sick on the Gambian and personalized power are still in existence. The laws are there. The practice, the everyday practice that we've seen people. who act as if they are law unto themselves are still happening. We saw, how Germany used to behave with the institutions, they are still happening. No reforms have been made. So on that area, I think that Mr. Barrow has performed dismally poor in that aspect. Now, I'm not an expert in economy too, but I still know that people are grappling with daily, problems. Salaries have not had that much increment, although they talk about transport, but there was a big good policy.
There's a 50% salary increment, Olame.
Where? Transportation. Transportation that has been triple or in some areas.
Actually, so the salary is 50% increment salary.
My friend, it should have been a lot more than that. There was the vehicle policy, which I've said was a lot of money. It was abandoned from even before it starts. That's happening. Education, these people can tell you better. How has it improved since Jamaica left up to now? And we are not supposed to compare now with Jamaica. Right, but today we are doing comparison. Even Jamaica himself is bold enough to compare my record
and this record.
Yes, record.
Yeah.
And even though you may disagree with Jamaica, but you don't see tangibly what has come to replace, his programs. So all those things fall under that. So being the incumbent, having served 5 years, it is him now who is very much in the glare, of people who are joining more than any of these people who have not been given power, who have only been talking about what they will do when they come to power. But he has been there, and what he has done, I can tell you, generally in some areas, perfect. But in other areas, there's still a lot to be done.
A lot to be done.
Whether it will be fair to give him another chance, well, it depends on the guy and now who you talk to.
It depends who you talk to. Esa, President Adama Barrow, how would you access him as a candidate seeking for the election against his record? I mean, we are going to look at everybody against their record because this is what they're looking for, seeking for another mandate, especially him. How would you assess him?
I would agree more with what Lamin said. I mean, you see, like you said, Barrow shouldn't have had any business in this election. And that is, for me, that's where I start when it comes to assessing him as a candidate who is seeking re-election. The first point of betrayal of the trust and confidence that Gambians had in Barrow was when he reneged on his 3-year promise. He campaigned on a platform to serve the Gambian people for 3 years, embark on institutional reforms. All these problems, these development initiatives that he's talking about, he was not elected to do all these things. President Barrow was clearly elected to bring us reforms. We had a vision in 2016, and that vision was to embark on institutional reforms, to restructure and reform our society, Gambia, to better prepare for a free, fair, and credible election. That was before 2021. But these things have failed. We have seen how the draft constitution was thrown out in parliament. Well, some said it is dead, others said it is in coma. Maybe it will come back again. We have seen also how the security sector reform is just stagnant. I mean, people wondering whether it is going anywhere. Civil service reform, we wonder whether it has even started or not. A lot of other things, the electoral laws, the bad electoral law that we have in this country. Some of the bad laws, like the Public Order Act, these things are still in place. I think what Barrow should have done was to reform these institutions, reform our laws and policies to suit 21st century advanced countries, and that was a failure. But now, like he said, it's left with the Gambian people to decide whether they're going to give him another chance, another 5 years to prove himself. Well, he has always been saying, the excuse he's taking now is that, well, when I started, I was in government with other parties. Now, if you vote for me, it's going to be an NPP government. But I ask myself, is the man forgetting that he's in alliance with other political parties? Why is he saying that it's going to be an NPP, fully fledged NPP government? Where's the APRC? Where's the NRP?
Yeah.
And other political parties, are they dead? Have they sold their parties to Barrow? That is the question that I'm asking. In terms of civil and political rights, like Cham said, I mean, there have been improvements. Media houses have proliferated. Freedom of expression is guaranteed, but then still there are ups and downs here and there when it comes to media laws, for instance, in the Gambia. We still have some bad media laws that were here on the Jamaica, and they're still in existence, and they know everything about that. Coming to the draft constitution, like I said, is thrown out. But the biggest problem in this country right now, which I think a lot of people are neglecting, and that should have been an issue in this election. Yeah. In advanced countries, in mature political cultures, we have what we call issue voting. Yeah. People choose a particular issue or issues and vote based on that. But the issue that Gambians will have voted for this year should be on corruption. The level of corruption in this country is just mad. Yeah. Think of it since 2017 when this government came to power. Only one person we have had, that is the former permanent secretary at the Ministry of Fisheries, is just because of pressure, and then the man is taken to court, now in mile 2. So we ask ourselves, is this government serious about corruption in this country? We still have the anti-corruption bill in parliament lying out there since 2017, for 5 years now, being in power. You said Jammeh's government was corrupt to the core. I think it is easy for people to accuse people in this country, governments to accuse governments or their predecessors, than to assess themselves. Because that was the case when Jammeh was coming. One of the reasons for the coup was rampant corruption. And Jammeh became more corrupt than Jawara's government. Barrow talking about corruption under Jammeh. I think corruption under Jammeh was centralized. Jammeh controlling. It was. But corruption under Barrow is decentralized. It is not only Barrow controlling, but it's in different sectors, and it's normalized and celebrated in this country. That should have been an issue. Gambians should be talking about corruption in this country. Now today when I was going out, I saw a lot of people out there going to dominate, and I was asking myself, it's this now there has not been fuel in this country. Commuters are suffering on the road, yet the same citizens are going out to nominate the same president seeking for re-election. And I ask myself, in other countries it will have been different case. Probably it will have turned to a protest to stop his nomination from proceeding, that this thing has to be fixed, because the economy is just stagnant right now. Because vehicles are not moving, people are not moving. So in terms of fighting to ensure that there is, there is that level of seriousness in this country when it comes to dealing with corruption, fighting to improve the welfare and the well-being of the Gambian people. I think that is very lacking. He has done just poorly in that area. What we elected him for, to embark on all these reforms and create that new Gambia that all of us have been talking about, has not been there. If I am to assess him really over 10, I would rate him probably 3 over 10. Wow. If I have to assess him. That is my honest opinion. Wow. Because the thing is, I'm asking myself like I ask all of you. The most fundamental objective why Barrow was elected in 2016 was to usher in change in this country. Let's ask ourselves as Gambians, if we are honest to ourselves and honest to our country, have we achieved that change? The people that he went into coalition with, and if Asala, one of the pioneers, they're all talking about it, saying that there's no system change in this country. We have only changed the bus driver, and the bus remains the same, the engine remains the same, the passengers remains the same. Nothing has changed absolutely. So if that system change, fighting corruption, improving the welfare and well-being of the Gambian people, standard of living is just getting higher in this country. In terms of education, what has improved in this country? Let's ask ourselves that question. Go to the University of the Gambia, go to our basic and secondary schools, you see school children sitting on the floor to learn. Go to our health sector. For 5 good years, President Barrow has never visited any hospital in this country. For 5 good years, ambulances have been in our hospital. Some you don't have fuel. And then all of a sudden, few months before election, you have the president coming to donate ambulances. I'm asking. In 5 years, this man has never visited military. Serious about security sector. We have the president. Security of the presidency in the hands of the Senegalese. You having your strategic neighbor, a neighbor as strategic as Senegal, having access to the details, the intelligence, all the information, having access to it. Senegal could just invade Gambia in just within a second. Just like that, So I am asking, the reason why I rate him 3 over 10 is because the very reason why Barrow was elected in 2016, he has failed in delivering that to the Gambian people. The constitution is thrown out thanks to President Barrow and his MPs loyal to him. They say President Barrow no, you see, that is what they will say. That is what they will say, Fatou. But this is the reality. The reason why the draft constitution was thrown out, they just use some other excuses to say, oh, the retirement judges and all that not. But it's about the retroactive law or clause in the constitution. We bars Barrow from contesting after this election. That is the reality. We all know it. We know what played in that parliament. So he was the constitution, the draft constitution itself was thrown out because prior to that we had cabinet raise some of these issues.
Yes.
Cabinet raised it. President Barrow himself raised these issues before it was in parliament.
Yeah.
So people cannot come and convince us that it was not pioneered by President Barrow and his loyalists in parliament. This is the fact. Then from the draft constitution, the electoral law, we are still using Jammeh's electoral law to vote in this election.
Yes.
We're still having corruption in this country, rampant, decentralized, as I told you. So if I don't rate President Barrow 3/10, what will I give him?
Maybe you make up, I mean...
I was just going to take it up from ESA.
Yeah.
We talk about how President Barrow was coming into this country to bring in reform, to bring in change into this country, the new Gambia.
Yeah.
And looking at it from all the important issues that ESA has raised up, corruption, security sector reform, civil service reform, and how much those have translated into our international relations, Let's talk about security. For instance, when you talk about the security sector here, people are not certain about the future of this country, talking about the insecurity that we have in this country. But you will see that there are a lot of things that are intertwined in this, and they translate if you study our international. When we talk about youth, for instance, a country where we're talking about a new Gambia, where we're talking about reforms and change, we have an unemployment rate of over 40%. It's alarming. Do you understand? And we see that we have things like the back way, which really affected our youth here. We know that they were going through this, what we call the back way, but the illegal migration, how much effort or how much has the Barrow government prioritized this to see that it is not just about these young people who are embarking on rural-urban migration, which would have an effect, because this would blow in our cities and it will lead to crime. You can go into how that can lead into crime, but also what foreign policies, migration policies has his government embarked on to ensure that, first of all, these illegal migrations, or these irregular migrations, as we put it, are addressed either through transition countries, where like Libya and the others, or to their final destinations like Germany or Italy. We've seen that we had a moratorium earlier on, but that was stopped. We saw President Barrow's government going into, not going through policies, but just denying return of these returnees from Germany. Like strategies like that show that our migration policies or our international relation policies, whether bilateral with Germany or Italy or multilateral under the auspices of the EU, were very, very unstable. So if he had taken like very stringent policies or gone into very strong bilateral relations, not just about how these youth embark on these journeys and end up being illegal migrants there, but the reintegration, the return and reintegration of these youth, that could translate into issues about addressing some of the security issues, like we talk about crime rate. But looking at security at a higher level as well, we know that when we listen to the TRRC, one of the main issues we've seen with all these allegations that are coming up from the former junglers and others is their lack of information or their lack of education on human rights and international human rights law. Most of them took up these actions, right, because they just, all they believed in was what they have in the army, the ranks that they have in the army, with no regard for the respect and the protection and fulfillment of these rights. And then looking at that, President Barrow, we know that this country was at very uncertain times. Yeah. When you come in as a transition president, there's one thing you do, your reforms are important, but we need reassurance as a country. If we had such human rights violations being exposed under the TRRC, and a president of such a country that is at such a fragile state doesn't come out to at least reassure the government of its stance on the protection of human rights in this country, where Jammeh's justice does not get much support from this government, then we have very serious policies, or very serious issues here in terms of security and how the international arena perceives the hope that they saw that the Gambia was yearning for, or perceives the new Gambia that we're trying to build under the presidency of President Adam Barrow. So I think that even if we look at the lack of education, health, and all of that, we'd see that his lack of prioritizing these issues translate very seriously in our international affairs as well, in the international domain. First of all, these will not attract a country that is its second economy depending on tourism, right?
Yes.
COVID-19 had happened in handicapped tourism in other countries, but then we see other countries revitalizing their tourism sector. We expect someone like the president, something that brings us number 2 in our GDP, that you prioritize it. Now COVID-19 issues are laying low about travel and all of that. That should be prioritized, not just for the GDP, but again intertwined with youth employment, with the issue of security. Do you understand? So all of these being interlinked. The president, first of all, that assurance was not there. The prioritization was not there. And the policy formulations that we've yearned for in the New Gambia have lacked a lot under his presidency.
Fatou, you know, what really fundamentally led to all this absence of all the reforms is actually, you know, President Barrow's, the non-compatibility of President Barrow's ambition to stay in power with the reforms. See, that's why the drafters of the coalition agreement make sure that their president does not go beyond 5 years, or maybe they put it 3, but does not go beyond 1 term. Because it is only when you are a transitional president would you be ready to implement some of these reforms, because these reforms, one, are expected to be unpopular. They are expected to, you are expected to step on somebody's toes. You are expected to also in a selflessness in you yourself itself, where the other presidents, the new coming government can pick from. For example, the Trrc, I mean, that is meant to tell the people the nature of the atrocities and who are responsible for them. Now, when President Barrow was launching it, everybody thought that, okay, here now is an opportunity for us to go over and know who did what, and, you know, reconciled and healed and, you know, get people accountable for what happened. But we've seen that when he became to be interested in power, clinging on to power, he found it difficult now, or unpalatable now, to deal with the Trrc matters. That is what led to all this, where would I say, foot dragging or clandestine efforts to torpedo the whole process. That is the truth. The government is no longer very comfortable with the things, you know, that are embodied in that Trrc. For example, you know, they don't know how to handle recommendations which suggest that, well, you have to prosecute people whose votes or whose connections in the electorate you want. So you find yourself you find yourself in a position difficult to implement them. The Janneh Commission was like that. The security reform was like that. We wasted 5 years when 7,000 strong West African troops were here for us to deal with the rogue elements in our security. I say rogue elements because the Commission have shown that there were people who were only loyal to the head of state. They have no law. All the law is what the head of state wanted them. In fact, they act beyond and outside the laws of the armed forces to become laws unto themselves. We had 7,000 West African strong to deal with these things, take them out of the system, get them money to invest, you know, into other activities. But the president wasted 7 years, it's 5 years, he does not deal with that. And now we're still living with the problem. That is why we continue to have West African troops here, which in itself does not take well of our sovereignty. Now, if people in this country now believe that our sovereignty is hijacked, compromised, they have only President Barrow to blame. Because he had the opportunity to regulate the security system, to ensure that the security is reformed such that the people, even if you don't reduce them or how to call it, retrench them, take those who are, who are compromised, who have really taken part or have been implicated in some of these atrocities or some of the human rights violations, take them out. All right, replace them with people who really now cares about, how we should operate on a law and a system. But that has not been done. Instead, what we have seen was the government is causing up, accepting, tolerating those things, or keeping them where they are. How can you reform? And it's just, for example, like the NSS. Most of the people who serve in the NSS are still in their place.
The NIA.
The NIA, well, they call it the NIA. They are still in place. That's supposed to be the intelligence unit. That place should have completely been reformed. Those who were presiding over atrocities shouldn't have been there, but they are still there. If you go to other sectors, people who have been recommended by the very commission that was set up by this government are still working at this place. So these things become difficult for Barrow to implement, because it's really become, to contradict his own ambition to stay in power. If he were not interested in power, he would have been bold enough to execute all these reforms and, go out honorable and say, look, my task was to change everything. I have changed everything. I'm going my way. I think Mr. Barrow would have been sleeping a lot more easier if he had done that than now. So all the burdens and all the problems that are in his face are self-inflicted. I mean, everybody knew the goodwill, the international goodwill Gambia had when he came to power. Everybody was happy that the tyrant is gone. Everybody was happy that there is an ample opportunity for the Gambia to reform itself and take its pedestal stage in the international field as a respected country, as it was on the Sadawada Jawara. But now, ask everybody in the Gambia or outside, they will say, wow, we are disappointed. And you don't have anybody to blame but President Barrow. So President Barrow, these are the troubles or the burdens now, his candidature is going to tackle it. He had to convince people now, why didn't you reform the things when you had time to? Why didn't you change these things what you had for? And fundamentally, why didn't you go when you said you will go? So these are the burdens he now have to fight with. And because he is the incumbent, all this judgment and analysis and assessments, will fall more on his head than these people who have never had a chance to come. So he is the candidate on whose head much assessment or who will be much criticized, undoubtedly, because these people had no chance to be there. We did not trust them with our finance or with powers that can do what we want. So he is the one that will face all criticisms and praises. I mean, fundamentally, of course, he said today that his priority is infrastructure. He said, because no infrastructure, no development. That is in itself not adequate. You see, infrastructure, Jammeh, when he came to power, he did those things.
Yes.
But how much of it now have solved our problems, our daily problems as Gambians? A person's, the most precious possession of an individual is not his road, it's not his house, it's not his car, it's his life. What that life deals with every day is more important. Nobody is discounting that roads are not important. We know, of course. But then the basic things that you need before a road, or even you need to be on that road, those are the things we should, give attention to. But because we built the road and then you are now entitled to stay here, like Jammeh and other dictators will do. But that's not what it is. It's like asking the president or going to dance and thanking the president for building your roads. As somebody said, it's like going to the ATM, get your money and thank the ATM for giving you your own money.
Your own money, that's true.
That's how it should be. So Barrow is the one who's going to face all this, and he's the one who needs more convincing to do. Not those the people who are dancing with him today, but the people who are sitting at home who have critical minds, who thinks beyond the box. He needs to convince those people. Like, if I have another time, look, I'm going to be a change man.
I mean, you said something very interesting. What what his priorities are. I remember when he came in 2016, President Barrow said, "Mani boto be keme worola, be will killing keme fula, ni nata mbakela keme woro." That didn't happen. As we speak right now, we are on inverter, solar, no electricity since morning. These are the promises he made to the ordinary Gambian. For me, at the end of the day, I've said this, and everybody say, "Fatou, you always talk about rice." Yes, I'm a Turekunda, but you know, if you buy 1 or 2 bags of rice, then you know that is interesting. But this is what ordinary Gambians will be thinking about. Like you said, how many of us think about issues? Are we talking about the health care, which is not even is not functioning? Are we talking about the education? You guys speak about that. Are we talking about the livelihood, the basic commodities? No, but energy. These are the things that President Barrow promised us when he came in 2016.
And that cut you see. I talk about international goodwill that came to us.
Exactly.
And that turned out to be very big missed opportunities. You see, these infrastructures he's talking about, he could have done far more growth if we don't have all our monies from EU going to support economic. Hundreds of millions of dollars have been to support economic over the last 5 years. Those monies would have come and he would have built everywhere if that was his passion, to build roads. He would have got more money to build roads. But the monies we are going to support economic here. You have plenty of opportunity to reform and stay safe, and the citizens stay safe. Our armed forces are here. Those who are elect to have been atrocities, get them out, get them accountable.
But are we also, as a citizen, going to the polls based on issues? Are we going to the polls based on issues?
Yeah, that's how it should be.
You go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say something. I think the points Lamin raised are very important, but then the issue of infrastructure, for instance, I'm not quite sure. Maybe President Barrow is being influenced by the relationship with China. Looking at the kind of relationship of foreign policy that China pursues as opposed to Taiwan. Taiwan goes in for checkbook diplomacy, which has been here up to 2013 when we ended the marriage. 2016 going to China. China goes by the infrastructural diplomacy, building roads, railways here and there. That's what they do in most African countries. And then it's important that people understand one thing. This is a strategy on the part of China. What they do is that China knows it has a population of 1.3 billion, and they cannot create employment for their people inside China. China graduates millions of engineers every year. Where do they find jobs for all these people? Now, let's embark on infrastructural development in our partner countries, African countries, create jobs for our engineers to be transported to those African countries. Build those roads. Chinese will never give you scholarship to go to China and study engineering. And in fact, it is the laborers who work during the day. Chinese who work at night because they don't even want you to tap from the knowledge that they have. Do you understand? So I'm not sure whether he is much influenced by such a relationship because China. So I think in fact the relationship with China, because China focuses on infrastructural development, should have been an opportunity to build most of these roads, to build up infrastructure, because a lot of Gambians are not aware today that even the Hakalang road that he's talking about, the money is coming from our domestic economy. He said that, and proudly. He said, yes, we are building this, nobody is sponsoring. And I'm like, Gambians are going to sleep peacefully with that statement, that you know that your domestic economy is used to build the roads, and the standard of living is just getting high, inflation and all that, and the people are comfortable. So I think if he's influenced or inspired by the relationship with China, if the relationship is really going well, I think it should have been an opportunity to embark on infrastructural development without touching our domestic economy. I'm not an expert in economics, but then these are basic things that you yourself can say.
But then China also has more inbuilt issues as well, other than just outsourcing the employment, like giving employment to Chinese outside. Like he said, the expertise would be carried out, but their presence in other resources, in tapping other resources in these African countries is very, very detrimental. So getting infrastructure, building hospitals, for instance, with a maternal mortality rate getting higher by the day, is no credit to be taken from a president. But you have Chinese building infrastructure, roads here and there, or buildings, a conference room here and there, where they are present in our marine zones 24/7, where they're going into our territorial waters, where they shouldn't even be 24/7, where they are fishing with fishing net sizes that are not approved by the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, where they are engaging our young men who are generational fishermen. When you go to Sanyang and Gunjur and others, whose forefathers were fishermen. But because they cannot compete with the size of boats that these Chinese have on these seas, their livelihoods have been taken away. The choices they're left with is to work for these Chinese for mega tokens at the end of the day. It saddens us that to have a president who was saying that would focus, if he is focusing on the infrastructure that the Chinese are bringing in here, where our other natural resources are being tapped into without any form of control, where our maritime zones are being invaded down to our economic, exclusive economic zones, that is very problematic. And then timber as well, their presence in terms of the timber, and we know Chinese are pioneering globalization, the economic sector of it, right? They will not come and invade as we saw in the past the Americans do in politics like that, but the exchange, you cannot compare infrastructure to the tapping of resources that they're embarking. And I think it's problematic to be taking infrastructure as credit in times like this in this country.
It's interesting. I think we will do another candidate next week because we have a lot of them. But what we will also do, Lamin, is we wanted to have Ablai here because Saturday IEC will do a public scrutiny. There have been a lot of talks. I mean, we don't have the legal expert here, but we'll just look at what we can look at. Who do you think might be disqualified? Who do you think? Because there have been a lot of talks about disqualifications. Qualifications and
I think the
legal questions.
There are legal questions, but unfortunately,
I don't think there is more of a legal question yet.
Yeah.
The IEC had set out a 12-point criteria.
Yeah.
And all the scrutinies that are going to follow are going to be based on that criteria.
Only that.
Only that. If you have another way, then you have to go to court. But as far as the IC is concerned, it is when you fulfill these 12 adequately that you pass as a candidate. So therefore, there is no legal issues at the moment now as to who is qualified, because the IEC have published that the electoral law, the requirement for presidential candidates are these 12 points. Now, if you offer to camera think that Khalifa Sallah or Barrow is not qualified, or Sheikh Tijani is not qualified, or how to call it, Esafal did not live here, or had perhaps a Senegalese situation. Well, he had already made that today. If you feel that you can challenge that, I think the only way to challenge that, you might have to go to court and seek legal advice, whether possibly that is even possible. Because that's even possible. I saw a legal argument not long ago, which said, okay, Section 62 of our Constitution, which deals with disqualification matters on presidential matters, etc. For example, if somebody is sacked as public servant, or somebody has been prosecuted on a convicted or a criminal this thing or whatever, may not have been qualified. But I've seen another provision, I think it was Section 26 or so, his legal opinion was sounding that provision categorically, and it's an entrenched one, categorically said nobody should be prevented from seeking election to an office in this country unless one, he's insane, or he doesn't have the capacity or the health to do so. That's entrenched. So that means that, even with all these sections, 62 and so on, that entrenched clause notes that it's only in very rare cases that you can block somebody from not contesting. That in itself is a violation of that person's right. And that right is guaranteed in that Section 26 or something I'm talking about, which is an entrenched clause. The legal opinion is trying to say that you do not need to weaponize Section 62 against any of these people, when you have that section which is entrenched.
I'm just hearing that for the first time.
I'm telling you that these people's rights to contest are guaranteed in that section which is entrenched. And you know, and the other thing is, I have had flimsy, opinions like, okay, for example, in the case of, I don't know whom they said, was it SFR or somebody that they said has not been living in this country? When actually the rule says if you have been ordinarily living in the Gambia, meaning of course, you may be away, but every time in the year or every time you have occasions to come to the Gambia, you are ordinarily living in the Gambia.
But isn't that this reason why we should have had a new constitution? All of these
yes,
things.
and then I think with regards to the living, yes, but with regards to the criminal records, the convictions, I don't think, well, it would have been nice to have the legal experts, but whether to say that just those two provisions on the Section 26 overrides prosecutions and all of that is news to me.
It's news to me as well.
Yeah, because I don't think criminal record
I wish I had brought it.
stands.
I think the guy was trying
record stands.
The guy,
but I think that says if you are serving in public office, right?
Office,
okay.
yes.
Yeah.
No, but
say that it is totally overridden by
the legal opinion was saying that 62 should not be weaponized when you have an intent clause which says reasonably nobody should be barred from contesting for elections.
Yeah.
Now this is open to legal minds, and I'm quoting a legal mind which says that. I wish I had brought.
But I think a lot of these things are going to be up for interpretations by the
But the
Supreme
issue
Court.
before, that's why I said there is no legal problem before the IEC, because what is before the IEC is the 12-point criteria that they have published to be the criteria to qualify as a presidential candidate. And they're going to scrutinize these documents
based on
along those 12 points. So don't expect a legal wrangling from the IEC. They are not even prepared. They are not in that mood. What they wanted is, as long as you fulfill that, you are cleared to contest elections. If somebody else felt something else, and you look at these things. Okay, you even in the society that we live in now, or the kind of how polarized this society is, how would you have felt if somebody comes and said, okay, Barrow is not qualified because his party, for example, as some school of thought, banded not long ago.
National executive.
Because his party has not had national executive. He has not had Congress. etc. Okay, how would you have felt? How would this country look like if you said Lawyer Dabo is not qualified?
But they're different.
You said Mama Kande does not, as they said, Mama Kande does not have the requisite education qualities.
But those are
what are you inviting at this point?
The land is different from
those are very different from issues of prosecution, criminal records. They're very different.
Go ahead. Let us go.
No, because the things he's comparing now, that executive council or Mama Kande not having education, what is considered?
I'm talking about considering
disqualification. And that is what I'm trying to allude.
I'm looking at the insecurities that kind of situation can pose.
Yeah, because not every flimsy issue could be considered to be contended about someone's qualification. But there are certain issues like criminal records, tax evasion, and things like that that are very crucial to be, they have to be scrutinized to see someone's qualification. Obviously, it's politics. Yes, it's politics. Other flimsy issues about citizenship or have you really, are you really a dual citizen or not? Those would come up about education records and all of, but those cannot be compared to criminal records and some of the things that are being said or alleged against some of these candidates. So issues would arise. Like some of them might not even make it to the courts, but there are certain issues that have very serious legal questions that are embedded in them, and they have to be addressed.
And I think also, people just have to understand one thing. I mean, there have been talks, that, some are saying that what will be the consequences, looking at our security situation in our country and all that. But then also we have to, our institutions must be respected. Our laws must be respected. It will otherwise not do good for us to say, oh, let's look at the situation and ignore the laws, ignore our institutions. I think our judiciary is independent enough. That is my own assessment. I think we've been doing well. I mean, I would say that Gambians have more trust and confidence in the judiciary now than before. Just like Lamin said, I mean, what I think the IEC will not be dealing with any legal issue. What the IEC did was to accept nomination papers, and because I spoke to an IEC official when all these things were going, and I said, hey, what is going to happen? Because this was on, I think, on a Saturday, on a Saturday, first day of nomination. I said, what is going to happen if, let's say, one of the candidates or two or few of the candidates turn up and then you are like, oh, you are disqualified? Because what I thought was in 2006, I remember fully well, Henry Gomez writes at the IEC office at Kerr Avenue. He was there to submit his nomination papers. That was exactly where he was disqualified. And he joined the UDP camp together with the other one, that is NRP. But then I asked this question and the man told me clearly. He said, look, you see, if we have to follow all these laws here and there, then we have a problem. A lot of candidates will not even qualify. But then I was like, and I'm coming, I was like, okay.
At that time, if I can remember.
I think it has to do with residence. It's 5 years. He has been outside. You have never been in the country. That one was very clear. So it was not coming. Ordinary resident that you talk about, it has to do with the issue of interpretation, even that one. But then, you know, I asked this question and he told me that, look, for us to submit your papers, we accept, and then we open this thing to public scrutiny. If anybody has issue, you don't come to the IEC and say, Mr. Ali Mamanjai, this man is not qualified, reject him. No. You go to the courts, you test our courts, and then our courts will determine. But I think I have trust in our courts. We have seen in the past, the court have made judgments, you know, I mean, has made judgments on issues, in fact, clauses in the Constitution that have been there and declared them unconstitutional, that they are violation of somebody's rights. So somebody who is, just because you are in public office, you are sacked. We all know this constitution, and that is why it goes back to my point, that we should not have voted in 2021 with this electoral law, with this constitution, because that is what is creating all these problems that we are having. So if somebody goes to court, I think, in my own view, probably the court will even decide that, look, this constitution was made to tailor-suit somebody, do you understand? And it's a violation of somebody's right. And Gambia, as a common law country, could rely on judgments even outside the jurisdiction of the Gambia, in other common law countries like Ghana, Nigeria, to make their judgments, or even in the Gambia. You know, do you understand? So I think people also have to be very fair. Our laws must be respected. Our institutions must be respected. They must be allowed to do their job. If anybody has issue with any candidate, raise it. Let's go to the courts, and then the courts will decide finally.
That's what I'm saying. What I'm trying to say is, she mentioned what perhaps we could expect after the IEC scrutiny. I want it to be clear that we don't expect legal wranglings at the IEC. No. They are going to look purely at the 12-point criteria and tick your applications, see how you fit the boxes, and then you are given clearance.
But then taking that
now I said, if there are challenges, if I'm not satisfied, you will need to go beyond the IEC now to go to the court.
That's why the problem is.
I told you. Now listen, I told you. We don't have a legal mind here. I just give you a legal opinion that I read not long ago.
Somewhere.
The person was trying to analyze how eligible. In fact, he used Sektijan's case as the example, showcase, rather the how to call it. For example, let's call it. He used his case as the example that he was sacked from. He was dismissed when he was minister, and argued along those things. He also mentioned 62, which deals with things like people who might have been convicted for one criminal thing, and said, now, if we weaponize that at the moment, not only are we inviting insecurity, but he said it will also contravene a certain section 26 or something, which is an entrenched one.
Yeah, that's interesting.
I'm just hearing that too.
An entrenched clause, which said that it is only on very exceptional circumstances, infirmity or insanity, that you can block somebody's rights to seek for election in an office. So the legal man is trying to say that we don't need 62 at our this stage. And look at this properly. You have already said, but that's our law. The 1997 Constitution, you've already said, it has been much discredited.
But it's our law.
We know that. We know.
Yeah.
And he told you, he just said how the court might feel about it.
Yeah.
We know that these are laws that were tailor-made to suit the individual.
Yeah.
We all know that. I mean, because even the very fact that, and we had the precedents. I mean, the law says that, I mean, people who were in the junta from 94 to 96 cannot be prosecuted for what they have done. Yeah. The court threw out Yankuba Ture is sentenced to death. I mean,
and that's why I said that we have to throw some confidence in our courts.
That's what I was trying to say.
Saying that, you know, it does not follow. And if there is a general understanding that these laws was meant not for the interest of the Gambian people, but to suit somebody's lust for power. Obviously,
I think I understand your point. It seems like you're also talking about what will be the legal outcome.
As I was saying, giving credit to our judicial system. And what I was just trying to come in there was when he was saying that the IEC, we cannot bring, we cannot bring legal questions. But these legal, we know how cases arise. We know rights are there, issues are there, but they become relevant when they can be challenged. So these issues can only be challenged, right, when the IEC, for instance, says, okay, you're all nominated based on our 12 points. But then someone has an issue with among those nominated, among those ones, to say that, well, the IEC has given the go-ahead, but then in our constitution, this person doesn't qualify. So November 6th is very important on who goes, on who gets nominated. Then we can start to question their candidature based on their qualifications according to the provisions.
We took the matter
and then
both the candidate and the IEC
to court, and then what when that happens?
My thing is
the legal opinion we missed here in the absence of Fatou would have been if I should institute such a proceeding from now against the elections, how much opportunity and chance do I have that I will make a verdict? I will get my verdict.
That doesn't mean it shouldn't be addressed.
It's the law. You always have a motive. You know, all these are political things.
But then
you know, somebody can get up somewhere and say, oh, I think for the interest of law, Fatou is not qualified. All right, but then, if you go deep inside, that person's motive is that Fatou is not my choice for a candidate, so perhaps I should go and put legal hurdles.
And then
so what Abdullah could have helped us was if somebody institute, he had done that with NGOs,
CSOs for
many times. We would have known if somebody try to institute that. Where are you going first? Okay, how can that proceeding block somebody's candidature from now against December 4th? So we will have to, maybe when we come back here, we have to
explore. When we come back next week, this is something that we should look at. What happens if somebody goes to court today and on Sunday or Monday and say, oh, I'm questioning, for example, Darbo's candidature. Now that IEC said it, I'm questioning it. What happens then? Is he going to be allowed to go?
That has also been the question I've been asking.
And now nomination is closed.
I'm trying to ask this question. I'm trying to give myself answer. I said, you know, looking at, for instance, in the interest of, you know, natural justice. If someone challenges someone's, you know, candidature, for instance, at the courts, the person will need fair hearing. The person whose candidature has also been questioned. And then also, like we are all asking, how much time is there? Will the case be dragged? Because some people are saying, well, this could be politically motivated. It could be dragged to allow the election to pass. No, but I'm saying asking this question: what happens to that party's candidature, for instance, that candidate, for instance? Because if, for instance, let's take an example. Darbo's candidature is challenged in the courts, and then we have December 4th to have the election. You know, the court have not decided. What happens to UDP? Are they allowed to nominate another candidate? Or so is the election going to be pushed to allow the court to decide? Or is the court going to drag? Is the court also going to fast track this process and make sure that a verdict is given? And even if the verdict is given, for instance, let's take an example, the verdict is given and they said, no, Darbo cannot run. What happens? Will the IEC create create another nomination for the UDP to file another candidate to contest the elections? Or are they going to just push the election? Because some are saying they will drag it, allow the election to pass. I said, no, that will be a violation of Barrow's political right to be voted for, and also a violation of the UDP's right as a political organization to put up a candidate. So then you'll have double violation here. And I don't think the court will also want to do that. So, but then, like they're saying, I think it also, sometimes also, we look at the realities of the situation. I mean, will people get much benefit from this if they go and say, okay, let's challenge this in court? They may think of the consequences at the end of the day. Will it happen? But then that wouldn't stop us or anybody from challenging the market.
And then the court will decide justiciability as opposed to justiciability. So if it is justiciable even, like if there is if there is a political motive outright, it's not justiciable. That is quick. But if there is a legal question to answer, that is where there's a big question of what happens next.
Now, that is the issue. That's why I was quoting the guy who was saying, we at this point in our politics or in our country does not need to weaponize.
I saw a title like that, weaponized. I did not read it.
What do you mean by weaponized?
Yeah, I saw that.
To use it as a weapon.
I know.
That's what you were saying. So that's what I'm trying to say. That's what the legal opinion was saying. We don't need it.
Just a minute.
I'm hearing in that article that what we need is, in fact,
and it's creating more confusion now, because what we have seen is that when this issue has been raised, Davos issue, we saw the R2K also wrote another statement to say that when President Barrow said this and now in the other camp, for instance, in the UDP camp, some are saying that we are also going to use that against Barrow.
And this is
so this matters might go to court at the end of the day.
And this might cause problem for us as a country. If you have people doing it just for political reasons.
Exactly. So if Davos case is challenging the court, someone can also say, I'm challenging Barrow's case.
And that is left, my point is that it's left to our justice system, giving due credit to our justice system that they will.
That is why I'm saying, and that opinion is saying, do we even need this?
Yes.
What we need is to ensure that the IEC provided a free and fair election, and whoever wins, you know,
my thing is money. Whoever will die will challenge. Then them election, we will move. And
I can tell you, you know, what you hear on Facebook and these things are not necessarily what the people who are in power thinks about. I can certainly say with all certainty that President Barrow is not interested in anything that is going to look like...
you think so?
But does that make it okay though?
Absolutely not. Because you know why? For me, that is my point. I know for sure he is not a type who's interested in creating upheavals or anything that's going to stain the process of this. Because you see, disqualification, in whatever motive you have, whatever grounds, legal grounds you may have, once you raise it, the absolute conclusion everywhere is elbowing an opponent.
Someone said this.
No matter how
we're talking about President Barrow alone. We're talking about even anybody. But then someone said this to me, and it was very interesting. He said, President Barrow said, don't challenge anybody. Let's go to the polls, and I'm going to win.
I know.
And that was very interesting to me.
I know for sure.
That was very interesting to me.
President Barrow is not interested in that, because the thing is, he's not the type who would like to go through upheavals or to win with a certain question.
That dormant presidency, we are paying the price.
And I don't think
what he's saying.
And then you're forgetting that he's not the only. No, I'm just saying that these are very important questions that are problematic.
Yes.
And then saying that President Barrow might not contest, you have
might not
raise that issue. We have 20 other candidates who could raise this. We could have civil society organizations. I'm not saying I know we don't have the time. We might not have the time, but these are pertinent issues that have to be addressed to have the reform that AS has been talking about, a clear electoral process. These are questions.
So we will continue with this conversation when Abla is here. But what I want to do, something that I want us to do, look at quickly, is the declarations. You know, Osino Dabo challenged all the candidates. He declared his assets yesterday publicly, and he challenged every other candidate to do so. And today President Barrow was asked about it, and he gave a very interesting answer. Let's look at that. Let's look at those videos, and when we come back, we'll just look at that briefly, and we will close the show. So let's look at that video.
I have presented my assets declaration, including all my bank balances. Yeah, including my bank balances, and if the IEC wants to have, I mean, the bank statements themselves, they are here, they are available, which I'll give to them. But the bank balances are declared, and my assets, my property, my properties, real properties, except for one, I acquired this year in home, Bansang, Concorsanto, I call it Concorsanto. All what I have declared were what I had when I became minister in 2017.
So you had those before you became minister?
I had those before I became minister, and I made the declaration to the ombudsman as required by the code of conduct. Yeah, and I have one additional acquisition, which was done, which I got, I mean, just about 2 months ago, because in Bansang. So I have presented this, and I have made photocopies which I was going to give to the media.
Yeah.
So they are here. Any member of the media who minds, you can come. I'll give you a copy. Okay. You know? And I'm challenging all those who have presented themselves as candidates to also make available to the media, who would take their microscope and look at them, you know, with very inquiring and inquisitive minds. I have presented.
Very much. So that was Dabo making a declaration about his assets. And I think when I had a copy, I sent it to you.
Yeah,
today you reported it. Yeah. We also reported on it. What's your assets? When you looked at his, I know you called me asking so many questions. I'm like, this directed to the UDP team, not me.
I think I will concur with what President Barrow said today. He said the requirement is you declare your assets to the IAC as a condition. He has met that.
Yeah.
Now, the issue of publicly declaring your assets is commendable.
Yeah.
For somebody who is seeking public trust. And in the light of too much corruption allegations that our leaders got involved with when they get into office, it's very commendable, not just for the IEC, but for the public to know what you own before assuming office.
Yeah.
So Mr. Dabo should be commended. But then, it is also the right of other candidates, such as President Barrow, not to publicly declare their assets. Because, it may not just be that you are hiding. But naturally, we all know that we have the right to protect from the eye of the public what we own.
Yeah.
You understand me? So when President, you can argue, when President Barrow said, well, the requirement is for me to declare to IEC, I have done that, and that's the rule. Okay, his critics may say, of course, he falls shy of meeting the bar of transparency raised by his political opponents. Of course, he will get a hit for that. People will say he's not willing to come out because probably he had so much property now, or probably he's thinking of acquiring more in the next term, so he doesn't want anybody to know in case tomorrow you come up with that. But I think every one of them have reserved the right to make their assets not known. It is not compulsory. If it is done, it is a commendable, trustworthy action that everybody looking for public office should do. Commendable.
Well, that's why I will never run for office, because I will never make my assets.
I mean, it's surprising. It's surprising that
to provide even your
President Barrow will say today that he has declared his asset to the IEC, and like you said, he has the right not to declare his asset to the public.
Well, I never said exactly that, but he
said he meant that.
But I'm saying I'm surprised because back in 2016 or 2017 when he came to power, what he said clearly to Gambians was that him and every minister were going to declare their assets. So you cannot come in 2021. I'm coming.
He said publicly.
I mean, he said they're going to declare their assets, and what people were interested in is public declaration of their assets. That was not done. But that's not done.
In 2017.
Yeah, that was not done. And then what we are asking is, because you see, what Dabo did is commendable, and we expect all political parties or all political leaders to do that. Because just 2 days ago, we saw this story, a Senegalese investigative journalist, alleging that President Barrow is involved in corrupt acts, he's having a bank account in Senegal, properties there, here and there. That is coming, and just 2 days, I'm not sure. I wouldn't say that this is politically motivated, but I was asking the question, why will Dabo declare just yesterday? When 2 days ago there was a story on President Barrow, is he trying to challenge him to come out? Because when this man, journalist, made that allegation, President Barrow's spokesperson said, the government spokesperson said, Barrow may take a legal action against the man. But the principle of international law, the president taking legal action against the national interesting. So it shows that our political leaders need to be serious, because I'm more interested now, because when Dabo did this, and I asked myself, 2 days ago, an investigative journalist in Senegal said, and this investigative journalist has a good track record. He was the one who exposed Macky Sall's younger brother's case, the crude oil and all that. So we're having Barrow having that allegation on his head, not clear, and not declaring his assets publicly. This is problematic.
I think it's important to clarify
here that the story,
in fact, the story that was talked about,
that they responded to,
and they responded to, was attributed to a journalist.
He
but he later said that he had no connection with such a story, if it existed at all. He, in fact, has just published a very damning investigation report that linked Gambia, Senegal, and Guinea-Bissau to huge cocaine trafficking. That is, in fact, the work he worked on. This other one, he was associated with it, but he didn't work.
But you should see this video. And I spoke to him this morning.
So in other words, this work that is supposedly done by him, which alleged allegations against Barrow, could be another work, or could never have.
What surprises me is, why did the government,
that is where the problem,
without finding out whether this was true or not,
that is where the problem
to make statements like
that. The president might take legal action.
That is what drew the local media to it. But no local media have broadcast or published it before the government reacted to it. So that is the government's reaction that made the local media to, in fact, get attracted to it. But in the first place, you are right. The government should have established whether actually this was fiction or this is work done by Ali.
Your paper published it, right?
We published the government's reaction, but not
the
actual story when it broke, because we were trying to verify.
Is it that this not the reason why public officials should declare? Because when I interviewed Dabo yesterday, what he said was, when we came in 2016, all of us ministers declared our assets. It's even though it's not public.
But not to the public.
No, he said it's not in the public, but it's there. It's kept there. At the, what did he say? This ombudsman's office. It's there. And now let's go against that. 2017, what I declared, what President Barrow declared, against what we have today. So he's directly challenging him. And that is serious. What does he know? Exactly. And I asked, what do you know that you were challenging him this openly? He said, well, there's so many allegations.
So maybe
and I think accountability has been questioned so much. His president's accountability with his cabinet ministers. He should have taken this opportunity to declare his assets. And he talked about rights. They reserve the right. Yes, in politics, in elections, yes, rights are there, but sometimes you take take the step further. You're not just confined by these rights. And declaration of public assets, I think, is very, very important in this, in this political environment, especially where, as Esa talked about, our corruption index is like over the rooftop at the moment. So I think this President Barrow, we're not saying that he's legally obliged to do it, but this would have been a great opportunity to follow suit.
So from what you have said, Dabo knew what was declared by everybody at the time they come in power. So probably his motivation is not all Mr. Clean.
Everybody's declaration with politics.
I think it's politics. Dabo has also been using capitalizing the opportunity. We have seen the documentary. As a declaration of all that. So his motivation may not be, I just want to be mistaken.
With this kind of contest that we have at the moment, I think the guns will come out. They would use strategies like this just to, I wouldn't say sabotage.
I think what should have happened, we should have got in our law, in our electoral law, powers to the IEC to publish this. I think that
was it included in the CRC? Was it then? The new one, the draft one. It would have been interesting to publish it. Well, considering our history,
all the same they said they're going to display them for public scrutiny.
Yeah, well, we go and see.
So we will have to go and see how many compounds did.
Well, I don't think that will be for public scrutiny. Their assets, I am not sure. But let's see what happens.
Of course, they have a right to privacy.
Yes. And then when we come back Saturday, if this is available, when we come back Saturday, next Thursday, we can look at all that.
All right.
Gentlemen and lady, it's been an interesting first episode, and I hope everybody enjoyed what we had discussed today. Next week, inshallah, Ablai should be here, and Young Jai should also be here. Final message, Alima.
Okay, like I said earlier, it's an interesting political environment, but I just wish that with the caliber of people we have, I just thought that we would have seen a different way of politicking in this country, where policy would take precedence over the normal or the type of politics we've had on mega fighting over flimsy issues in some instances.
Lamin?
Well, I will appeal to all political players because we've now, completed the first process, the campaign. I would like them to continue to exercise as much tolerance as possible. Because there are too many, there is a possibility of them bumping into each other. The country is small. No matter how properly the schedule is made, the country is so small that they might bump into each other. So let them continue to exercise tolerance. The other time I saw a picture of different political parties. Today I saw a picture of a UDP pickup actually lifting NPP supporters. That's impressive. Yeah. That's quite impressive. So I want them to do like that. I saw Dabo also waving when he was going on tour in Barrow. He was waving at NPP supporters. Yeah. Those kind of things. And I met, Doi people met UDP people in Woodley. They came and celebrated Mr. Salah. So those are the kind of things they should do.
Well, we want a peaceful, safe and orderly election, 2021. Every Gambian has the right to vote, and I urge every Gambian to exercise that constitutionally guaranteed right, not only a constitutional guaranteed right, but also guaranteed by the ICCPR as a political right to vote. But then we do this in a mature manner, in a calm situation, to have a peaceful election 2021, geared towards consolidating our democracy.
Thank you very much, Esther, Alimatu, and Lamin. If you're here in the beep, it's Nawek. We have been on solar for the past 10 hours, so that's why we're rushing to close this show. Good night to you all, and see you next Thursday. Bye-bye.
Our motto is fair play, integrity, and transparency. Our electoral system is second to none in terms of its transparency, credibility, fairness, and transparency. We are pleading to everybody to observe and respect.
One Gambia, one nation, one people.
our
Join
motto.
our coverage, Race for the State House, every Thursday at 6 p.m. You decide, we got you covered. Your voice, your ballot with Kerr Fatou.